Welcome back to the show. Today's guest is a powerhouse Latina business leader, HR expert, author, and entrepreneur. She is the founder of Charismatic Talent, a one-stop HR and recruitment agency, a corporate HR director still working 9 to 5, a mentor to many, and the author of The Daily Grind. Her story of resilience shows us what it really takes to build a business, stay grounded in your culture, and succeed one step at a time. Dr. Blanca Espinoza, welcome to the show. It's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Jessica. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here.
You have inspired me so much just with in a short conversation that we've had previously. So I know that you're going to provide lots of insight to our listeners today, and I'm excited to dive in.
Awesome. Let's dive in.
Can you get started by just sharing a little bit about your story? Maybe touching on being a Latina and a woman entrepreneur and what sparked your interest to start Charismatic Talent?
Yeah. So as far as my background, I was born and raised here in California. I did get sent to. I got shipped off to Mexico a few times as a kid. My parents, we're first generation here, so that was really difficult. When you come from that Latin culture and your parents are barely starting off as well, it's very hard to. I think a lot of us can relate to that, to just really be grounded and understand like where we come from. My parents weren't perfect. They weren't the best parents, and they had like a million kids because I have 13 siblings. So definitely have that Latino background that I think most of us probably, have. And it was hard. It was hard, trying to figure out like, who you are and in this world sometimes. I am number 6 out of those 13. My parents did, get like remarried, and I have siblings that are step siblings. But out of my mom, my dad, I'm the youngest. And I think, being sent to like Mexico when I was like 10 years old and 2 years old and so on, it really taught me like the difference between like the culture over there and then the culture here. Back then, like 30 years ago, there was no refrigerator, no washer, no dryer. You did everything at hand, and it was like just shut up and do it type of attitude, like you have no choice. And not only that, they didn't waste food. It's like you had your bread and your coffee in the morning. And yeah, I was 10 years old having my coffee in the morning, really kind of, I think that's what kind of made me who I am a little bit today, because then you come here and then it's different because you do have a washer and dryer, and there's a lot of things that help you out, and people do things for you, and so it's just different, right? I think that's why as Latinos we're such hard workers. And it was hard because we were moved around a lot. I did not stay out of school, which is funny because people are like, oh, you're a doctor, you must love school. I'm like, I was moved around a lot. I got into recruitment when I was about 20 years old, and I loved it because I love helping people. But I thought, oh, maybe I want to do something else. So then I went into school to become a therapist because that's what I thought I wanted to do. And then I became a child counselor. So I would work in the morning. I would do recruitment at night. I would work at a group home for children. And then I also became a foster parent. I was a foster parent for 10 years. And I then, kind of was like, this is difficult because you do psychology because you love it, not because it pays your bills. So recruitment was paying more of my bills than psychology. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to stick with recruitment and HR and work my way up. And then I got my master's in business. And then I was in the perfect spot for a while because I was kind of like head of HR for a company that did therapy for children, which I liked because it gave me both worlds. And then COVID hit. So, a lot of people lost their jobs, and I was at home and I thought, why can't I have my own staffing agency? Like, I see so many people that they push themselves, and I'm a big person about like, hey, push yourself, move forward, like you could do anything. So I would have never thought with my background that I would even have like a master's, and so I was like, I could do this. And so I just started off with, I'm just going to start off step by step, and started to grew it into recruitment. And then obviously as you network, you meet more people, and I know a lot of HR. So then started moving into the HR space. And something kind of I noticed when I was talking to clients that they were like, hey, I'm in this weird middle phase where like I can't quite afford an HR person, but I definitely need recruitment to grow, and I need payroll, and I need, systems put in place. How can you help me with that? And since I knew how to do that, I was like, well, I can kind of do it all. And then I started to get in the concept of that one-stop shop. Like maybe we could just kind of put something together, like a package for these entrepreneurs that are in that middle phase. Because I understand that phase. I think we all, if you're a business owner, you understand the phase of I need to grow it now, and it costs money to make money. So I, just started working for some clients, and it's been about 5 years now. We have quite a bit of clients under our belts. We do a lot of their marketing as well. And then I handed that off a lot to my daughter, Charisma, and why my business is called Charismatic Talent is because my daughter's name is Charisma. And then I work a corporate, like you said, 9 to 5 job because I still got to pay the bills, and also do own other e-commerce business that we run as well. And then I'm looking into other ventures, and that's kind of like my background and what I do.
I love being able to chat with you because I can relate a lot to your background and even drinking coffee. My kids think it's hilarious, but my grandma would sit me at the table in the morning with like their bread and butter or crackers, I was actually telling them the other day, we didn't waste food. I couldn't even have a drink with my food unless it was very little because I had to eat all the food on my plate first and then I drank my drink. And those mannerisms still follow me to today. They're like, Mom, why aren't you drinking your drink? I don't drink it till after I eat. So it's funny how our culture and upbringing follow us through now. And I can see that work hard mentality because I have it too. My mom was a single working mother and she always was working. And so I saw her working and that's how I grew up is like I felt like I had to work harder and harder and you had to work hard for the money type of thing. And so I love your story so much because you never gave up and you persevered and you took every chance that was given to you as an opportunity. And you saw the light in each opportunity that you had to be able to make something great out of it. And I think that's super inspiring to, bring you to where you are today and having multiple businesses. So that's really, really great. I'm sure your daughter is privileged to be able to be in this venture with you too.
Yeah, I tell her all the time, I was like, I'm trying to set you up. You're trying to set up that generation. I'm not going to be on this earth for a long time, but obviously my kids are my kids' kids. And if I can do something now to set that up, that's what my mindset is. And it wasn't easy because a lot of people, they see the now. And I was a mom at 18. I was already married at 18. Your typical Hispanic background, we think we know it all and we got to move fast. And your parents are just trying to marry you off. And you have to discover a lot about yourself. And like one of the things that I always preach is just like, you got to really know yourself because this is your life. You have to live it. And the reason I got into psychology is because sometimes I didn't understand why my parents did what they did. It didn't make sense. Why are you giving me coffee? I mean, I liked it. And for people that know me, I don't drink coffee because it makes me sleepy, but I can have a little bit of coffee. But in Mexico, the coffee is mainly milk. It's like, it's so good. They put the cinnamon, the milk and everything. So it's not as strong. So I could have a little bit of coffee, but knowing who you are and really not letting the circumstances of your life hold you down. And I kept seeing people around me and I would think, I want to do that. I would literally be driving my little bucket car and be like, I want a BMW one day. That's so cool, right? Or I want a Mercedes. What do those people do? And you just look back now and I think, wow, that's crazy because really it's all in you. It's the way you choose to look at life. What are you going to put in towards your life? What is your mindset towards even the control you have over your life? And if people would focus more on themselves and the control that they can only have for themselves, they will actually get ahead. Most of us are stuck in what the other person thinks, or how do they people view me, or people think because I'm Hispanic, or sometimes people don't even think I'm Hispanic. I don't know why. But or they don't think that I speak Spanish, or they don't think that I lived in Mexico. Like we are so quick to judge. Or when they hear I'm a doctor, they're like, "Oh wow, really?" It's sad because I'm just a human being, and I'm just really trying to do the best that I can. And when I was 18 and I had my daughter, she changed my world, and I literally saw that chain of if I can change myself and be better, and she could be better, then like we don't have to keep going through this, because it's difficult. Like I saw my parents are hard workers, hard workers, but because they're such hard workers, they were never around. It's like we never saw them, and and then my parents were both good looking, so they just were, hopping around being HOs, bunch of kids. And I hear stories, like I'll ask my mom funny things, and the now she's older, so she's like, stop and they I didn't know, because I'm like, what do you mean you didn't know? And then she's like, you just don't know, because you got to think that I was raised like over 60 years ago, where you were taught this is what you do. And if you get a divorce, it is not, if you are divorced, literally straight up, I'm gonna give it to you straight up how I'm told. And so my mom was married at 16 to her teacher, and he would beat her, and so she left him. And so when she came here to the US and she met my dad, and my dad didn't judge her, she felt like, oh wow. And she's like, honestly, it wasn't even that I was like in love, it was just the fact that like, oh, he's not judging me. And I thought it's so funny how you settle for less, right? Oh, he's not judging me. Okay, I got to marry this guy. But then you marry them and you have kids, and there's no real love there to hold you together. And then it's chaotic. So I vowed I'm not going to have a million kids if I can't take care of them. I'm not. And my daughter, I tell her all the time, I went to every field trip you had at school. I volunteered. She's a singer by nature, and so I went vocal lessons, music camps, worked my butt off to pay for those, everything. Like there was nothing that she didn't ask me for. Mom, all of a sudden I want to play guitar. All right, let's do guitar lessons. Like just so that she could find who she was. And again, that's my biggest message: find who you are.
Absolutely. All of that is so important. And I can relate so much because coming from a similar background, my mom, she was very hardworking. She wasn't really around. My grandma took care of us. And talking about kind of the generational wealth aspect of things, that's kind of common right now with our generation and wanting to make generational wealth for our kids, where I didn't have anything. I put myself through college. I was independent all the way around, and so being able to provide for your daughter and be there for her is super important, super inspiring. And I wanted to ask, because you touched on a couple of things, but you had mentioned about getting to a point where you finally kind of had this confidence about you, where you saw life in a different lens, in a different perspective. Would you say that that was tied to your studying of psychology, or when would you say that that mindset kind of shifted a little bit for you?
I just want to like say that I've always had a very strong mindset just in general. Like, um, we had a really bad childhood. So we lived in the ghetto. We were always home alone. So you start to te pones las pilas. Like you have to figure it out. When I was 9, someone tried to kidnap me. Full on try to kidnap me, like try to grab me, shove me in their truck. So I think as a young age, something sparked in me where you got to wake up, because it's a harsh world. And I thank God a lot for that wisdom, because there was a lot of times that even now at my age, I think back and I go, how did I even know that? I just thank God for that. You don't see it then, but you see it now. And that was straight up God helping me, because as an 8-year-old, how do you know to do this? Certain things that I feel God has always guided my life. And I've listened to the voices that I think we all have that inner intuition. I would say that my intuition is on point because I let it really guide me. And I don't want to give too much, but it's a sad life. Our stepdad abused my sister, and there was times where he would try to brainwash me, and I would be like, well, what does that mean? And I'd ask a bunch of questions. It never like happened to me because of the fact that I was always very like, sharp. And then fast forward to now being a mom, and I really didn't want to have a daughter because I thought, what if someone tries to hurt her? And like being a girl in this world is not easy. And being a girl in this world is not easy. And it's being a girl when you're raised in such a chaoticness is not easy. I wear my brother's pants, his Dickies, all his clothes, like whatever they hand me down is what I wear. And we grew up in the Chola days where, black lip liner and all that stuff. That was what I went through. So, I was scared, honestly. I was so scared because I thought, what if she has to go through all of this? I was like, that's God, this is the worst thing you could have gave me as a little girl, because now I fear for her, and how can I teach her to be strong? And how can I get her out of this? And that was like when I felt the weight on my shoulders of like, it's got to be on me. I have to be better than my parents. I have to not let the nonsense of life get in the way, and she didn't ask to be here. I brought her here, and so this is not on her. And that was my mentality, just like I got to keep pushing forward. But again, it's hard. It's easier said than done, because there was a lot of times where I gave up and I was like, I'm done. This sucks. It's hard. I'm tired of going to school. I'm tired of working. I'm tired of doing this, and you get in this rut, and it's like, the devil pulling you down, and then you're like, you got to get yourself back up. and no one's going to do that for you. And that's why I always tell people, it's not about other people, it's about you. Like, no one's going to do that for you. You have to get yourself back up. What does your life mean to you? Where do you want to go? Like, nothing can stop you if you really know who you are and where you come from. And once that kind of is set in you, I don't care what it is, you're going to suffer through it. I actually learned, and I know this sounds funny, but when I was about, I'm going to say 38, which was not that long ago, but I actually realized that everything bad that has happened to me, obviously it's made me the person I am today. But I was like, if I didn't suffer and didn't understand and feel that pain, I wouldn't understand how happy I could be. Because when it's like the opposite, it's the yin and yang, like the good and the bad. So if you don't have bad in your life, you're not going to be happy, because when you're happy is when you value something so much. When you're like, hey, I'm grateful I have this. I'm super happy my kids are safe. I'm super happy I have a roof over my head. I'm super happy. Like, you're just joyful. You're like, I know what it's like not to have that. And then I was like, you know what, God, I actually should thank you for all the pain in my life, because the pain in my life has shown me how to be so happy. And the pain in my life that is not going to stop, because life doesn't stop, right, is what's going to continue to push me forward. So I'm thanking you already for the pain in my life, what's coming. And I understand now, when I'm in a point of pain in my life, that I actually sit there and even if I'm crying or whatever I'm going through, I'm like, I need this dose of vitamin. I'm like, I need this dose of vitamin, because some good's going to come out of this, and I'm going to appreciate it more, and I'm going to be even more happy. And each time that I get a good moment, right, a happy moment comes after, it's even more amazing. And then I go, I'm kind of glad for that bad moment that I had. So we have a lot of people, like when I did therapy, a lot of people are complaining about their lives, or like, no, you don't understand me. And no, I wasn't dealt those kind of cards. And no, this. And I'm like, stop that. Stop it. Embrace the pain, because that pain that you're going through right now, that childhood you didn't get, or that stuff you went through, is going to make you, who you are going to be, if you allow it to. Or you sit there and live in the sorrow. It's up to you. And again, it all goes back to, it's up to you.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of I don't know if you know the story of Job in the Bible, and Job lost it all, but then, he was perseverant. He trusted in the Lord through it all, and he was given more at the end than, what he had before. But he had to go through that pain to get that blessing. And so I always think about that too. And give God thanks for, when we do go through trials and tribulations and, business, it's up and down, it ebbs and flows. And when you have those tough times, those tough months, it's like, all right, I know something great's going to come out of it, and just trust. And then you can see the light at the end of the tunnel.
And that wasn't a little pain. I mean, he lost his kids, his wife. I mean, you put yourself in his spot. That's a lot, right? That's a lot to go through. Yeah, and that's what I mean by like knowing where you stand and who you are. Even if, and I'm a big nerd when it comes to the Bible and stuff like that, but knowing a lot of these characters like Job and Joseph, and that they were, tested. They knew where they stood with God. That was what got them through. They knew where they stood, and they knew that, like, even though I'm suffering now, you have my back. And that's literally how I live my life. I'm like, I don't care if it's good, I don't care if it's bad, I don't care what's happening. Like, God's got my back. I've gone through a lot of things. I was told I had cancer, and that I was going to die, that I had stage 4 cancer. I was overweight. Like, I was just gaining a bunch of weight. I was always a chunky kid growing up. So I understand what it's like to be when you're not pretty and all the guys don't like you, type of thing. I went through a lot of things. I had to have surgeries. I had a hysterectomy. I mean, I went through a lot, and a lot of people don't know that about me, because what they see in front of them is not that. They don't see those stories that build who I am. And so that's why I tell people, even with business, like you're saying, everything, the book that I wrote, it's all related to motivational and business, because the business, it's an up and down. Like you said, it is not always going to go your way. People won't be nice to you. You do got to go out there and put in the work. Money won't last long. You got to be organized and really, do the right thing. I know people that have own businesses and they don't pay their employees, and I'm like, I won't work with you, and they're like, no, but I do. I pay them when I can. And I'm like, that's not how you run a business. Your employees come first. And if you can't understand that, because you have no business without your employees, right? So if you can't understand that, then you're just not there yet. And I don't work with people like that. I work with people that are like, I'm here to serve. We choose to serve. There's a difference. You could be forced into serving or you could choose to serve. And really, in a nutshell, without going deep into it, that's what we're here for. We're here to serve one another.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about the business side of things. We were talking a little bit about like the personal struggles and like why, how we got to, where you are now. And you've worn so many hats. I mean, you currently wear so many hats. You're a corporate leader, you're working, a 9 to 5, you're entrepreneur, you're author, you're clearly a mentor to many people. What have been some of the biggest challenges that you've faced along the way professionally, and how have you navigated through those?
I think judgment has been a lot because, again, goes back to what I was saying that people look at me and they think, well, who are you to mentor me? Who are you to tell me this? How do you understand my pain? Things like that. And I think that's been the struggle, really. Or even in the corporate world, sometimes I've been the only woman in a room full of men, and we're all like just everybody's trying to size everybody up, and then as a woman you have to come in strong, right? And it's hard because this has been my struggle. HR is hard in general because you're dealing with people all day, so you're constantly disciplining, right? And then as a woman I have to be on top of my kids. Hey, clean your room, do this, hey, teaching lessons, right? So I feel like I sometimes never take that hat off, and my problem is that sometimes I can be really rough. Like my delivery can be just very bulksome, very straightforward, and that's been a struggle that I have with, because sometimes I just have to understand that, hey, I am a mom, but like enjoy that. And I am a woman, just enjoy that, and I got to kind of calm down and not be so like, you got to do this and you got to do that and da 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 da, That's been my struggle, at least. It's like knowing the balance, of each hat you wear. When you have that hat on, wear that hat, yes, but then when you take it off, fully take it off. And that's just been kind of the struggle, just judgment and then my own self balance of all the hats that I wear.
Absolutely. I can relate. You're a girl mom. I'm a boy mom of two. So, I'm like a house full of guys. And so it's like I'm the only woman here other than my dog. So I have to, be strong too. So I can totally relate with that and not
I have a
ever.
son.
What do you?
Yeah, I have a son. Yeah, he's 10. But my son's he's so sweet. He's not a rough boy, you know what I'm saying? But I grew up with brothers, so I get it. I totally get it.
Yeah. So always being strong and, and having, I don't want to say front, but, we got to have that demeanor on. And so it's good just to, it's okay to bring that wall down a little bit too sometimes is a good reminder.
Yeah, exactly. And it is hard. Like I said, it's hard because that wall is plastered, man. It is plastered from all of the hits you got to take. And you are afraid to kind of put it down sometimes, because if you're not being hit one way, you're being hit another, and that's what is hard. And I think most women can relate to that. And especially in business, because they're like, I'm not going and playing golf with all the guys and getting all these contracts because they're all buddies. I've seen that plenty of times, where I'll go in there and I'm trying to get a contract and they're like, oh, I've played, with this guy for 20 years and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, ooh, well, now how do I stand out? Right? How do I show them that I could do a great job, or that my background fits exactly what they need? And that's a struggle too, to really prove yourself in a matter of 10 minutes to somebody.
You can make a decision about somebody in like the first 3 minutes that, you
Yeah,
meet them. So I can
impression is
totally see that.
everything. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
impression.
I feel like I get the, again, when someone looks at me, they don't think that I've had that life or that background, or that I'm such a hard worker, or that I've pushed myself so much. I think they think, and I've had people tell me that. People say like, "Oh, you could tell you've had everything handed to you," and I'm like, wow, that's crazy that you could look at me and just see that. But
Yeah.
that's not at all what my life is. And it's okay, because it's one of those where, like, I like to let people think what they think, and then I hit them with something they were like, wow, they weren't expecting, because it's like, nah, you don't even know that I got those skills, huh? you know and that's
Yeah.
kind of where I've actually won, like the contracts that I have, or things like that. Because, and then also, I don't BS with people. Like, I'm not sitting there trying to charm anybody. I'm very straightforward, because at the end of the day, honesty is what's really going to move you forward. In a business, you have to be honest, you have to be organized, and you have to care about what you're doing.
Hmm.
Those three things are really what matters. And if someone, says to me, like, I was talking to a business owner, and he said, well, we've gone through like 5 HR people in the last 3 years. And I said, wow, that's a lot of HR people. That tells me you're the problem. And he like looked at me and said, like, whoa, like I wasn't expecting that. And he goes, well, maybe I should take responsibility. And I said, 5 HR people in a matter of 2 years, like do the math there, right? And now let's say that maybe and if you're not a bad person, I'm not saying you're a bad person, but maybe you're not focusing on training them well. Maybe you're not focusing on showing them support. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that maybe you're lacking in an area, because why are people just leaving? And he stood there and he's kind of quiet, like, can't believe she just told me that. And I'm like, so again, that boldness that comes out of me sometimes. But then I'm like, I feel like I'm not doing you a service if I'm sitting there going, oh, really? Oh, no, that's fine. No, that's not fine. Why are you going through so many people? What's your problem here? Let's figure this out. And do you want to figure it out? Because some people don't care. They know their problem. And who are you to tell me? And they'll just shush you away. Get out of here. I don't need you telling me anything. And other people are like, wow, I needed to hear that.
Absolutely. And that boldness, I was talking to someone the other day and they called that type of personality like a fire starter. Someone who's just willing to be bold, go in there, say it how it is, flip some tables, but it's either you love me or you hate me. It's either we're going to work together or we're not. So that's a great way to wean them out.
Yep. And that's why I have so many wounds, because I'm a fire starter. I'm burnt everywhere at this point. I'm chicharron.
But it's true. If you garden at all, at least in California is where I learned this, is they would burn the fields, because it makes the soil more fertile. I didn't know that until I moved to California, to be honest. And then you can plant and then, you can grow more. So you have
Also,
some
pine
benefits.
cones. Did you know that pine cones, certain types of pine cones, when they fall from the tree, those big high trees, they're actually supposed to break and spark a fire and then light up the tree and burn the tree so that new parts of the tree can grow, and that's how the new parts of the tree grow, and that's natural.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so cool. I didn't
It was
know
very
that.
cool because I looked it up one day because I was like, why is there so many forest fires? Right? Because we get a lot of forest fires up here, like in Lake Tahoe and things like that. And then I read this thing where it said that a lot of them actually happen naturally because some trees are actually made to spark their own fire. And I was like, that is very interesting. So that just another reference that God gives us is life, that even if you're crisp 1 minute, the next day there's new life.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that. Let's talk about your book a little bit. So, your book has a really unique concept. You're blending leadership wisdom with like fun facts. It's like a coffee table book, which I just think it's really funny because it's called The Daily Grind, has a coffee take on it. But you don't drink coffee anymore. Why did you choose to take this lighthearted approach and want to make like a coffee table type of book? What did you hope readers to take away from this?
So I like to think most people are like me, where like we're lazy. I don't want to sit there and read a whole book. Like I'm just not a person that's reading a novel. I just don't. Business is boring. I've taught so many classes on business and management, and it's so boring. Like how do you teach somebody to like really comprehend, what I'm trying to say when it comes to business? And then people would always tell me, Blanca, like every time they hear my story, just like you should write a book about your life. And I'm like, well, no one knows me, but what I do know is business. And I know that business has a lot to do with like even life, right? And so I thought to myself, what would I read? And then I thought I would pick up, a little book that's a little coffee table. And if it's got only 3 to 5, pages a chapter, I'll read that. And if it's got some fun facts, because I like to walk away with a fun fact, like we were just talking about the pine cones, and then reference that. I was like, that would be fun. And then it's funny too, because the corporate world, everybody's got to have their coffee. And then I was like the daily grind. And then I was like, I like coffee. I can't have a lot of it. But I do drink like tea and, things like that to try to just my Diet Coke. I still need my caffeine somehow. I just can't have big bulks of it. Like, I don't know how people are having like espresso shots and things like that. I think I would die. But I thought this is something that anybody, I don't care how old you are, and you pick it up, you're going to gain something out of it, whether it be motivation just to be like, oh, yeah, I like that. That kind of pushed me to maybe, pursue my dream. Or just you found a found fact that you related to, or you learned something about coffee. Because coffee was very interesting when I started doing research about it. Coffee was a paste before. They didn't drink it as coffee. They would make it into the paste and they would chew on it almost like tobacco. Also, monks would chew on it to stay up all night to pray. And these are fun facts that are in the book that you could read that just kind of get you to think how, like, so back in the day, society, only the important people that would come up with great concepts would sit around and drink coffee because coffee was expensive. It wasn't available to everybody. So just things like that, that I thought, wow, this coffee really does relate to the corporate world. You know, it has kind of made who we are, because if people were sitting there coming up with ideas because they were sitting there drinking coffee all caffeinated, right, thinking like, this would be a great concept or this would be that, then that's where that comes from. And so I just figured if I blend all those together, maybe it makes a good recipe. And I like to blend stuff together.
Yes. Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm excited. I'm gonna order your book because I was like, I should have ordered it for today and then I could have, had it here. But it's definitely something I would have, at home and something that would intrigue me to read because I'm truly not a reader as much. I encourage my children to read. So having a couple pages a chapter and some fun facts in it, especially like business acumen, I think that's super cool. And I love the recipe that you've created. So I'm excited to read it for myself too.
And I'm not a reader either. That's what I'm saying. I made it for that person that's like a non-reader. That's like, I don't want to sit here and read a boring book, especially when it comes to business. I've had my son read it, and my son was like, that's really interesting, Mom. I didn't know that's how this was created. And I'm thinking, if a 10-year-old can read it, then that was what I was aiming for, and he gained a lot of it. My uncle, who is, just doesn't barely speak too much English, or is just not like hip because he's older, right? He's been reading it. And he was telling me, he was bragging to my sister about it. He goes, you should really read Blanca's book. It's very interesting. He was just wowed. And, joking around, me and my sister, I'm like, he's just wowed because these are things that maybe no one told him. And, it's like you learn these things that maybe you didn't know, that you were like, that's very interesting, I do have the book here. I don't know if you guys can see it because I have the background thing on here. But yeah, it's available on Amazon. It's $14.99. It will get to you in 2 days. I think it's a good book for your whole family to read. You could read it more than once, or just even read a chapter a night.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of you for taking the leap of faith because writing a book is like not an easy task, I can imagine, and thinking about what to write and the publishing and the writing of it all. So that's really exciting and happy to support you on that journey as well.
Yeah, it's, and this is the funny thing, inform yourself. This is another good advice. Just inform yourself. Everything now, you have everything at your fingertips. I literally Googled, I'm like, how do I write a book? How do I publish a book? How do I do this? You didn't have that before, and so now anybody can really write a book. It's not that difficult. I mean, it's difficult because you got to take the time to do it, but I'm just saying that in the sense of you could publish yourself now, where before, you had to have like, credibility and a certain background and maybe like an agent to help you do those things. And now I know a lot of people that have written books, and I think it's amazing that you could put your story out there no matter who you are, because we all have a story.
Yes, absolutely. Let's talk about charismatic talent a little bit. So, your business model is really unique. It drew my attention because I haven't seen any other business model like this in the space as of yet. You're combining recruitment, HR, consulting, even marketing aspects into your business, creating this one-stop shop. How did you develop that approach and what impact has it had for your clients?
I think my clients are wowed by it because they're like, I'm glad I only got to go to one person for all these things. And really, everything piggybacks from each other, right? Like, if you're trying to grow your business, you need recruitment, you need but then also you have to onboard that person. So get the person, you got to onboard that person. And then you got to know compliance because you got to onboard that person correctly, right? And then you got to be able to, give that person the right tools to be successful, and then continue there. A lot of business owners, they don't have the time, when they're trying to build a business, because they're out there networking, going to meetings, just holding everything else together. And that's the reason I came up with that concept, is because that's exactly how I felt. Now, the only thing is that I knew the recipe, right? I was like, I know, because of my background, I know how to do recruitment, HR, compliance, put systems together. I know how to do that for me. But what about the people that don't? And the more I would talk to business owners, the more they would be like, well, we have this piece down. We got recruitment, we got that down. but now we got, 15 people we're going to be onboarding. What systems do we use to then make sure that we're keeping track of their compliance, and what's the easiest thing? And then, they got to get paid. So does payroll, attach to that same system you're using? Because the worst nightmare in anybody's world is going to log into here and have to do this, log out of there, go to this thing doesn't connect with this, I got to go in there manually do it, or I got to have a spreadsheet, and then I got to go here, and then I transfer that information there, and that is a nightmare. So people that don't know what systems are out there or what work for that type of business that they have are the ones that are going, help me, because I need help from A to Z. And that's where that concept came, where I was like, we're a one-stop shop. We will help you from A to Z. We will do all the way from the recruitment to your marketing, to your onboarding, to your system, so that, we're just running it for you. This is another thing. Once we build it, we know it. So since we know it, we can run it for you. And that's just a lot of things off their back. And we have pretty big sized businesses, that we can run, but we're limited to as well, depending on, maybe a bigger business is going to require a little bit more manpower behind us, in the sense that, if a business comes to us and they go, hey, we have 100 employees, you're going to need 2 to 3 people to run that, to run all the recruitment and the processes and all that stuff. But if it's a small business, you can have one person run, a couple of accounts. And so that's what we do. We have restaurants, we have daycare centers, we have manufacturing, and they're smaller, medium-sized accounts. So, Charisma or I, or, anybody who works for us, we train them on that system. And then we go, here's their employees, here's how we do their recruitment. We have all their systems in place. Everything's interconnected. It's a one-stop place. And then they can log in and just see it. They could see from the beginning. They could see, where we recruited somebody, when they applied, the process that they went through, and then obviously putting them into the system, doing all the onboarding, having their compliance, and then putting them to the payroll and clocking in system, and it's all there for them to see. And they feel relief, because they're like, oh my God, thank God, Blanca, because we were using 10 systems and that was getting out of control.
Absolutely. I can totally relate. I kind of do that. I love systems and automation. So I help a lot of businesses on the operational aspect, streamlining, their operations, systematizing, automating as much as possible. Like if you're doing anything manual, you're zapping things. Maybe they're not, most of the time they're not even zapping things or even know what Zapier is, or maybe not even using any type of like AI tool to simplify that process. It's really important to get that operation, get the back end systematized, streamlined. Because if that's not organized and you're trying to hire on somebody to even help, maybe, to pass the baton on your part, there's, it's so much harder to train somebody to do that and to keep up with it. How are you able to, I guess if you can touch a little bit on like the operational aspect and like the tech side of things, like how are you able to offer this all-in-one kind of package program for your clients? I know you have a very lean team. So that just speaks to a lot of like your systems being very streamlined. What does your backend look like? What type of platform, tech stacks, AI, like what are you using?
I think it just depends on the employer that comes to us and say, this is what we need. Like, for example, if we have a restaurant and they have 3-4 employees, we're not putting a whole system together for them. Now, if anything that's over maybe 10 employees that you got to start now probably putting a system in place, I will take a whole like survey, and I'll be like, kind of, what is it that you need? Is it integrating together? Does it not need to integrate? I'm trying to see where I could save them that space of like, you don't need this. Maybe this we can combine. And for that, I just shop around. There's so many systems. It just depends on, like, for bigger companies there. I mean, you got a Workday, Salesforce, because they're going to need that type of system, whether they like it or not. There have so many areas, right, where they're like, oh, we have a department for sales, we have a department for this, we have a department for that. And that type of system, you're going to need something very intricate, And I think a lot of the time it's just knowledge, them not knowing that. And, I've done so much research on different systems that work for different type of sizes of business. I'm like, you can have a small Workday account and just run this, or you are kind of in that medium size. HR Bamboo will be good. HR Bamboo integrates with your system here. You could integrate that together. And they didn't even know that sometimes, and it's all about us doing our part. I'll call the company and be like, hey, this is what we got. So this is, who I'm talking to, how many employees they got, this is the systems they're using, can we integrate them with you guys or not, or what do you suggest or whatever. And I'm just kind of eliminating and doing all of that myself to see what works good together. And I think that's what a person does in operations, right? It's like, how do we clean this up? How do we do? But a lot of these places, again, they cannot afford that. Afford a person that has multiple hats. So they either have enough funds to hire an operations person, but everything else is just falling apart, or they find someone like us that has that background where we're like, we understand all those backgrounds. And I think that's where I'm different, right? Or where Charismatic is different, because it's like we know all of those backgrounds, and that's how we can help you with it. And if we don't know it, and if it's beyond our scope, we're going to find out, because I really don't know. A business runs, they all run the same. They all run the same. The only difference is the compliance side of things. If you're in the hospital space, there's going to be a lot of different compliances. Hospital, children, things like that. If you're in the space of manufacturing, a lot of safety, OSHA, right? Like there's different types of compliances that you have to deal with. So I think it really just depends on who we have. And I just do the homework for them. I do the homework. I do the research. I don't particularly pick a system where I'm like, oh yeah, we use this, because sometimes, and AI now too helps a lot. But for certain things, I'm like, you don't need AI. You're too small. You don't even need all that. And for some of them, I'm like, you do need AI. And then they're like, oh gosh, I don't want to use it. It's going to help you so much. So it just depends. And also pulling people into the future, because a lot of business owners that are in that medium phase are so used to doing it themselves, and they don't like technology, and they don't like AI, and they're like, I don't want to sit here and have to look at a screen so I can look at my employees and all this stuff. So I either go, well, if you don't like to do that, we can look at them all day for you if you want one. Or if you plan to grow more, it's going to get very heavy on you, because you're going to need to keep track of the most minimalist things that can cost you your whole business. And people don't think about that. They don't think about the legal side of things. If you onboarded somebody and you did their I-9 and, their documentation's just expired, do you think that as a business owner, when you're out there working, you're going to think about, oh, tomorrow this person's I-9 documentation expires, I have to renew that? No. So you do need systems in place to remind you, send you an email, hey, so-and-so's paperwork needs to be redone, or this person's driver's license is about to expire, especially if you have drivers. Little things like that matter, that they don't care in the moment until they get sued. And then they're like, I didn't know I had to keep track of all this. How am I supposed to keep track of 20 people's this and that? That's what it is. That's what you have. And this is why, again, it takes money to make money. I would really like, I guess one of the biggest things that people always ask me is like, right, and even you asked me this, like, why do you work a 9 to 5? And I'm like, because money doesn't come easy. It costs so much to run a legit business. I'm talking from, processes, employees, taxes, IRS, everything that comes involved, licenses, fees, right? All of that stuff. And if you do it right, you're going to be left with no money. Like you really are. If you cut corners, you're also taking that risk. It's all about calculated risks. Where are you at as a business? Where can we help you so that you are more organized and can then continue to flourish?
Absolutely. And there's so much insight there, but I love how you tied everything together, from how you can support businesses from the operational aspect to the HR aspect, and just how you're literally the jack of all trades for these businesses. So it just makes sense for them to hire you, to bring you on. And I love that so much. You touched on working the 9 to 5 job. So for anybody listening who is also working a full-time job while trying to build a business, what would you say is the most important advice that you would give them?
Get your sleep, plenty of water. No, first I'd like to say those are the people that I think that are pushing themselves to their limit, which I applaud you for that, because it's not easy to work a 9 to 5 and then go home and then still try to build a business and then take care of a family and all that stuff. So I applaud you. I relate to that. I would say definitely, but I wasn't joking, get your sleep, because you're going to need that energy. You're going to need a strong mindset. And, there will be a point where you get to rest. There will be a point. Remember, you're doing this for a reason. So don't stop pushing yourself, and know that every day that you put in that energy to what you're trying to build, it's just like one little piece more that is going into that little bucket of your future, your success, and there will be a point where you're like, wow, I didn't realize it's already overflowing. Even if it takes years, because I'm pretty sure with my school loans and businesses that I'm trying to accomplish, I'm going to have to work for a while, because I'm not trying to just build one business. One business can fall apart. A lot of people learned that during COVID, right? They had successful businesses. And then I know plenty of people that are millionaires and they go, I lost all my business. That was where the main of my income was coming. And they were doing great, but then when COVID hit, it just went down. Or they didn't have the money to sustain the business and build all the compliances that they needed around COVID so that they can sustain their business. And so that taught me, even I was like, I should dabble into different things, because when I'm doing my research on people, and when I'm talking to them, the people I notice are successful is when they have businesses from all kinds of different places. Like they'll be like, I own a restaurant, I own a gas station, I own a retail, I own manufacturing. And I'm like, wow, you're into everything. But because one falls apart or one's not doing good, the other one is. And so that diversity, in your pocket and even in your own life, because those people are very sharp, they understand a lot of things, how things run. um, they're going to always be successful, and one of their business is always bound to flourish even if the other one isn't. And let's go down to a smaller scale of like, well, Blanca, I only got one business, I'm at one business type of level, I'm trying to make this happen. I get that. Stick to it. I'm not telling you, hey, go open up 10 more businesses. What I'm saying is build your business, build a good foundation so it stays strong. Once you have that down, don't feel like you have to be stuck there and go, well, I got to be here 24 hours to, stop hoarding it. Because being a business and an entrepreneur is not about having one business, it's actually about having businesses. And if you look at all of like the big business people, they have thousands of businesses they own, but they're not sitting there running all the businesses anymore. They're just overlooking now at this point. They're allowing their team to run their business. And that takes a lot, I notice, because a lot of owners, they like to hoard. Oh, it's my business, I build it, it's my baby, I'm not gonna, and it's like, okay, well, then that's all you're gonna, because you need to stop and you need to let people do their job, and you need to trust your team, and you need to let that business flourish, and then you move on and you go and you build another business, and then you move on and then you build another business, and that's what you do. And you allow your team, of course you got to go back and put out fires to sustain them because you're still overlooking them, but keep building, stop hoarding. It's not easy. Again, it's not easy. Start from one, work your way up, but start with that good foundation, because once you know how to build one solid business, it's like Monopoly. You can build a million.
Absolutely. And I know there's so many people that they um like they have so many different passions, and then they feel like, oh, I have to figure out like one passion project and build a business off of that. So I think you just provided us with a little bit of clarity and reassurance to know like, hey, it's okay if you have multiple passions. And, once you build the foundation of one business, go ahead and pursue the other passion in another business. So I think that's really, really insightful. Where do you see charismatic talent being maybe by the end of this year or in 2026?
I mean, I don't know. I'm not one that wants to be like, and we're going to just be booming and we're going to be billionaires. And I like to just keep it simple, one day at a time. And I think we're on the right track. I think we have happy clients. Obviously, we've had a lot of our clients re-sign our contracts, which always is my affirmation of we're doing the right thing for them. And so I think if, as long as we keep doing what we're doing and we stick with the part of really trying to help and build a team for them, we're going to do great, because we're not sitting here trying to take your money. Money means nothing to me. I've learned that long time ago. Money is good for us because we need it. It's part of life, but it's not going to help you really feel fulfilled or even help you build a business or help you sit there and take the time. Everybody who knows me, like the people that have worked with me or even that I have mentored, they'll tell you like, I will take my time out of my day. I don't care if I have businesses or I'm doing whatever, and I will help them, because that's what feeds me. That's money to me, because in my head I'm like, and I've had people 10 years later come back and say, you helped me, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. So that's what me personally, like, that's what I look forward to, and that's what I'm teaching my daughter to do. I tell her, don't worry about the money will come. And even if the money doesn't come, you have a purpose, right? You're helping people, you're building something that matters. and you're learning as you go. So I hope that we do amazing. That is that's where we're headed. But I'm also not, I'm okay with it being what it is to, like a small business. I'm okay with it being a small business. And as long as it's really helping other businesses, then, it's good. And then on the other businesses that we're building, we're learning too. I've never been in e-commerce. E-commerce is super new to me, and building and learning about e-commerce has been interesting. And I plan to, I'm always learning. Keep your mind open. I'm learning how to day trade. I'm learning, obviously I already know HR and recruitment. So it's a constant growth. It never stops, and it's never going to end. Even when you're sitting there full of rich with money and all the businesses in the world, you're going to be like, I'm bored. What else can I learn?
Absolutely. Yes, I love that so much. I've been learning a little bit about day trading myself. It's a little complicated trying to figure out all the different stocks, and then I invested in one and it went down the next day. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to leave it. I'm not going to touch it. I don't know if day trading's for me. I think I'm just going to stick with the long-term commitments where you just set it and forget it.
Which most people do because that's the easiest thing to do. I'll give you some tips on that like later. Actually, what do you use to invest? Do you use like Robinhood or?
Actually, I don't know if you've heard of the app. I think it's Alinea. It's a new app, relatively new. These young girls, they maybe during COVID, they launched and they just hit the ground running. They started on TikTok and they just became really famous. But it's basically like it's an AI type of app where you put in the money and then it can distribute it to different sectors for you. And then within those sectors, there's different companies that the logic recognizes as being like the best companies to invest in. But then I also have some others in like my own favorites, like the bigs like Tesla and Amazon and Microsoft and Nvidia and all of those. So I really love tech. But then my husband, he is on Charles Schwab, and he's trying to get me over there too because it's like more analytical than what I'm using, but I'm new to it totally.
Yeah,
So
and
any
that's a
advice you have?
whole world. That's a whole world. I wish I could super speak on that, but I'm also learning it. I'm baby steps with it. I have made money from it, which is great because I've learned to day trade a little bit. But it is something that it could also be a full-time job. So once you kind of learn, you're like, oh, I really could make money with this, but I would have to have also like a whole setup and figure this out and day trade every day and stuff like that. But the people that do know how to do it, I mean, they're making money from it.
For anybody listening, is there any bottlenecks that you have found in your business that you could provide to listeners that might be going through the same thing?
We do provide also, if you go to our website to charismatictalent.com, we provide consultations. So if you wanted to meet with me for like an hour, you can. Sometimes that 1 hour will give you so much. Like I can provide you with all the knowledge that I have and maybe put you in the right direction. That's one way to do it. Google your butt off if that's what you got to do. Make phone calls, call people, figure it out. Like you will get to the answer if you really set your mind to it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for being here. And as we wrap up, where could our listeners find you if they do want to connect?
Yeah, so our website, charismatictalent.com. Also, we are on Instagram. You could find me under Dr. Blanca Espinoza on Instagram, and you could find me on TikTok as well. I do have a small little podcast that I do myself just with little bits and pieces of daily tips or whatever thing, nothing grand. But yeah, definitely come find us and we'll see how we can help you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here again. This has been truly an inspiring, energizing conversation. You've been vulnerable, and I appreciate that, and sharing your wisdom and your humor and your personal story with us. I know that listeners will walk away feeling motivated and refreshed.
Thank you so much. And thank you for everybody listening. And just remember, you won't get far without HR, one. And two, have faith in yourself, believe in yourself, push yourself. And there's no one out there more greater than you because there's no one out there but you. So, keep moving forward.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Thank you again for being here, and thank you everybody for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.